Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once more for some Faceit League action, and let me tell you, it was a fantastic week last week covering a couple of our matches, but Dex, this is our first big week right here because we are back here in South America, and a heck of a way to start off. We have a rematch from our grand finals from last season of Faceit League in Masters South America, Factor X, Zokorp, and last time around, Zokorp ended up taking that W, ended up punching their ticket EWC, so for Factor X, with this being an early matchup here, it's got to be extremely meaningful to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since this is still their week one matchup. These two teams rescheduled this one all the way from Wednesday last week to Tuesday of this week. So this is still their first matchup of the year. It's not like they're coming in playing a game last week. No, this is matchup number one for both these two teams. So having it be a rematch of the South American Masters Tier Grand Finals from last season, like you said, already puts a lot more on this one, especially for a week one matchup between these two. However, I mean, you cannot look at these teams and say that they're the exact same. There have been players that have moved on to other teams. I believe there's a couple players on Factor X who have even changed regions. I believe LCS, one of the supports, and one support that me and you were very high on, went to NA Expert tier instead. And there is actually a familiar face here for Factor X, but they are now on Zokorp. That is WedTube. A really good player on Factor X last season, moves over to Zokorp this season. I mean, this Zokorp team, they caught fire at the right time. I mean, barely got in, I believe, off of a map differential going into playoffs, ran the table in playoffs, made it to EWC. They're trying to keep that momentum up.
Yeah, it all came on the back of what I believe was a Garfo win. I believe they upset one of the two or three big teams that ended up making the difference. So, it just takes one domino to kind of get everything to fall in place. But, I mean, you can say a lot between these two teams. One of the people that we are very familiar with, Redder, who was the coach last season for Factor X, is now a player, is going to be doing support for them this season. Of course, we haven't been able to see much from Redder as a player, so I'm excited to see that today. But there was a couple names that really were brought up from Factor X to look after, and that was Bert and Tizzy. And Bert, we got to see a very large amount of last season as well, English. And Tizzy, I mean, they are talking very highly about Tizzy because Tizzy seems to be that person that is the focus, the center of this team. And to be fair, Dex, a lot of teams have that one player that, whether it is through skill, whether it is just through their charisma or their comms, they can keep the team together and keep them running smoothly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Reddit did let us know a lot about how they expect this team to play, and Tizzy was a focal point of it. I asked them 5 questions. 4 of the answers had Tizzy a part of it. Even one of the kind of jokey answers that I make sure that I ask the teams. They basically said, hey, Tizzy has to have some caffeine before every game, so always a cup of coffee, so they are ready to go here. But Bert, you talked about them here a little bit. I believe they were a tank last season, kind of got... they were subbing in and out with Romani, who joined halfway through last season, and Romani was really good. Romani, though, not on this roster, at least at the start of the season for Factor X, but you still have some other players. Ducio was also there. Pig Boy, I believe, was a new addition. Noel, I don't remember if they were on the team last year, but I think that's another new addition here for this Factor X squad.
Yeah, 100%, and this is the first real test that they're going to have because Factor X are playing games throughout Andromeda right now. Already have had a really successful run there, but it's a whole different situation where you're now going up against the team that unfortunately managed to do you in at the very end last season. So this is really an opportunity for them to show what they have learned over the course of these last, I mean, it's only realistically been like 6 weeks since everything came to an end. South America finished pretty late in terms of the other regions who qualified for EWC. But as for the moment, we're just waiting for that first map pick to come through. Of course, it's going to be Factor X picking first for Control, and we've seen, I mean, it's only been twice over, but Oasis seems to be one of the favorites, and of course, as I open my big mouth, that is going to be the case as Oasis going to be our first map to kick things off.
Yeah, I mean, you noticed last season in South America, they were always maybe like 1 or 2 steps ahead of the curve when it came to picking maps that you would normally see start to rotate their way into EMEA, NA, and especially in OWCS levels as well. Oasis was one of those maps that necessarily never got picked by those other regions, but South America, they always picked Oasis, it seemed, and that's exactly where we're starting off this one. And not necessarily a surprise. I mean, both these teams really seem to like it. It plays into a lot of their play styles, especially with Factor X, really talking about the fact that they really do enjoy playing a hazard composition because it allows their team to play very aggressively.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the kind of team that this is, because we saw a lot from Factor X that they had an ability to be aggressive, but they were always one step behind in some of these important fights. I think the fact that they are really enunciating how they are trying to make these fights more aggressive and how they're trying to initiate first, I'm really excited to see what that ends up being for them in a scenario like this, because we said that about a lot of different teams throughout the season. Some of them improved, some of them didn't, but with this span of time to be able to work on it, to make it happen, I'm curious how big of a difference we're going to see for them right out the rip.
Yeah, and especially with both these teams, like both the people that we just said, like these are really new teams. Yeah, they still have a core from last season's teams, but there are new players here. It's gonna be really interesting to see how different these teams really are. And you talked about Factor X playing in Andromeda. WedTube is actually still on Factor X in that tournament, not on it in this one, which makes it very, very interesting, especially for WedTube and Zokorp here, considering that WedTube might know a little something about Factor X that they're going to be able to help out their team. But right now, hero bans are being voted on. Hazard going to be the first one banned out here. I swear we are on a delay, so they did not know that, or I mean, they probably know that that Factor X likes playing Hazard. But that also basically makes it that Hazard can be played the rest of the series, unless that was a Factor X ban.
No, that was definitely a ban by Zokorp at the beginning right there, which, to be fair, if you had this knowledge going ahead of time, I think it's fine to shut it down right away, because if Zokorp was able to prove anything from their last matchup, it was that when they were able to get that early momentum, they were able to hold onto it throughout the entirety of the series. So for them, I think it's an instance of trying to repeat history, to try to get that momentum and hope that this Factor X team hasn't changed enough to learn how to swing that momentum now. But we'll go ahead and wait for that second pick, of course. Got to be made by Factor X, and obviously with Hazard off the table, you got to wonder what you could reasonably ban here in a scenario like this.
I mean, you start to see a lot of teams go away from what I would say is a very safe ban on the support line, going over to that DPS line instead. I mean, right now, hit scans are very strong. Soj is always going to be strong. Cassie has really started to come into a league of his own here in this last month, especially with EWC. You saw Cassie kind of overtake that spot that you would see Soj played in almost every map in a lot of cases. Ashe could be something. Tracer is definitely an option. Genji, if you just want to make sure that there's going to be no one really going to be able to get vertically up to a spot very fast. It's going to be really fun. But right now, waiting for teams to make their subs. Looks like Redder might not be starting for Factor X here, but that's not necessarily a big deal. We saw this a lot last season, that they were always making a decent amount of subs throughout it. But it looks like our second ban of our first map is actually going to be Baptiste.
Yeah, Baptiste is definitely an interesting first pick, but to be honest, for Oasis 4 Control, I think that's perfectly fine, because we saw a lot of examples last time of Baptiste that got away with a lot previously on that. I think actually WedTube was one of the examples we talked about at one point of a Baptiste that was able to simply stick in there, make things happen, and constantly stay alive. Maybe that was Hot Babe. I know it's one of the two. I know for a fact I got a 50-50 shot at being right. The problem is, I have no way of proving if I'm correct or not, because we're not going to see Baptiste here.
But looks like we will be starting off on University here. And we are in the Brazilian servers, and I know Overwatch earlier today did have the problem with all the servers basically going down for a couple of hours, which was unexpected, but Hunter, let's just hope that doesn't happen during this one here. But I mean, coming out of the gate, like we kind of mentioned, it was going to be Redder that is sitting out, and Wilma going to be sitting out here for leaders. Wilma did actually play a decent amount throughout EWC for this Zokorp team. So, I mean, with adding in some new players here for them, it's not necessarily a big surprise that you are going to probably see people coming in and out. But right now, Ramatra is the name of the game here for both these teams, and really the same support line as well, that Kiri Lucio really can never go wrong with it. And outside of that, you're seeing a slight difference in just play styles here. You have Bert for Factor X playing the Cassie, WedTube on the other side playing the Soj. Pigboy will probably swap back over to the Tracer. Stone going to be mirroring them out here as well. So the teams want to play the same kind of game here, but Bert, I think, is going to be playing a little bit closer to Tizzy than what WedTube will be with Connie.
And of course, both these teams being out, both going to rely on that Ramatra that we saw so much within that previous season. Of course, you could still Kiwi hanging around, hoping to find a boot, but Factor X, smart in this opening scenario, just going to back off and play to the inside area. And now this means that Zokorp is going to be at the team to make that initiation, to drop onto the point. You can see Dexter doing a little bit of separation, trying to, I think, collapse in on Factor X. The question is whether or not they catch into it in time.
Well, it's not going to be this time around as Burt's going to take out Steel Kiwi here, putting Factor X in actually a really good spot.
Yeah, and of course, Stone hanging around the backline. Of course, new member of this roster as gonna have to get off the point and give that away. Connie, of course, getting a little bit low, having used that Nemesis form already. As Tizzy gonna get rid of Hot Babe, it looks like it is eventually going to be a cleanup here as a few members still staggering around as Connie will go down, and it looks like still Kiwi and Stone gonna get out of there alive.
I mean, again, Redder talked a lot about Tizzy, letting us know that Tizzy was going to be a main focal point for this Factor X team, and coming out the gate there, I mean, they did a lot of what you really want your tank to be doing. They were taking space, taking a lot of attention, and even that split you kind of talked about there worked out perfectly as Pigboy and Ducio were on their own while the rest of the team was with Tizzy, and it worked out like a charm. Now, Factor X in control. What does Zokorp really do here? They're not that far away from a Pulse Bomb or a Kitsune Rush, but same thing could be said for Factor X.
I think you just have to kind of play for the Kitsune Rush in the situation to try to copy it back and forth that, or you have to play to prolong it out. Unfortunately, Stone being down means I don't think you have the possibility to really use this in a 4v5 situation. You could try, but you have to get rid of somebody in some situation. Unfortunately, Connie is forced into that Nemesis form. Red2 is being taken down early, and Annihilation is popped right here, which is extremely risky, and they are managing to handle a lot of that health right now. Hot Babe gonna go for right now. Almost gets hit with the Ajax. Nuvico, that was a little too scary even for my liking, but Connie being forced back, and Nevin's eventually gonna go out of that Annihilation as Tizzy still has theirs sitting ready to go. And if Tizzy wants to go in with full-on aggression, still Kiwi's the only one that can stop him.
And right now, I love how Factor X played that. They got out 3 huge ultimates from the other side, and now they're just coming back in with ultimates of their own. And Hunter, this is final fight territory as Burt already finds Kiwi.
Yeah, now Burt's getting a second one on top of that as well, and keep in notice, still Kiwi going down means you can't initiate the beat, which means now you have to set up a touch, but the problem is Stone is your toucher, and Stone is just coming out of spawn.
There's the beat. Steel Kiwi now gonna have to just try to run as fast as they can. 2 point. Stone gonna be able to get touch there, but that Annihilation for Tizzy, well, there it is.
Yep, there it is. Already got rid of one within Hot Babe, and now it could be the beginning of the end as Connie and co want to be able to survive for as long as humanly possible, trying to get touches on the point, stall for as long as humanly possible. Unfortunately, this stall feels like it's going to be just a delaying of the inevitable, and if you ever wanted a strong start for Factor X, that is as good as it could have been.
Hunter, no, that was perfect. No one died for Factor X there. They played everything to a T. I mean, remember, me and you casted Factor X's first game last season as well as they went up against Elements, and we had a lot of hype for Factor X, but Elements quickly shut them down there. Remember, Elements was essentially the entirety of that Brazilian team that won Copa America last year. So it wasn't a big surprise, but Factor X, I mean, I know that they were kind of mad. They were mad about how they ended up losing the grand finals last season. I think they're trying to take out a little bit of anger here right now. And with that start, they are on one here at the moment. No big swaps though from either side here. Actually, no, there is one. Connie going over to the Diva instead, especially for this point where high ground presence is really, really important. Going over to the Diva is not necessarily the worst pick, but you really have to make sure Connie never gets demeched. And with no one from Factor X dying last round, you at least have one goal you need to find out here early.
Yeah, exactly. We did see a bit of that Diva from Connie in the last season as well. It did definitely have its highlights, so gonna see if that's gonna be the case or not, because Connie is gonna have to ultimately be one of the touches on this point. It's gonna have to go up and down. And this really is gonna be on the back of Stone and Still Kiwi here, kind of playing together, hoping to find somebody caught out. Unfortunately, it's Still Kiwi who's caught out. Stone has to use the recall, and Pigboy gets a second one. And unfortunately, once again for Zokorp, not going to find anything here as to be forced back, and Hot Babe going to TP out, unfortunately, right into death.
How good Pigboy has been here. Pigboy, I believe, is one of the new signings here for this Factor X squad. 13-0 at the moment, looking for a little bit more. Make it 14 right there. Probably more as they're getting credit for a couple more assists or just elims. Stone swapped over to the Widowmaker, potentially just try to find one pick, but ended up just swapping right back over. And another swap coming out here for Connie, going over to the Orisa. I mean, right now, it really seems like Factor X has Zokorp kind of on the edge here. Like, it really looks like Zokorp is questioning, are they really running the right composition right now? Because nothing is working for them.
Yeah, I mean, they got rid of the Hazard thinking that was going to be the crux, something you could get rid of that might make them fall apart early. And honestly, I don't blame them for going that route as Duico going to get forced out of the fight momentarily as Connie just trying to keep a presence onto the point as ultimates are going to quickly start being a factor for this Factor X squad. Almost everybody is getting that 60, 80, 90 range for Pig Boy, as they have been impressive. We haven't seen them go to try to stick a pulse bomb yet, as Connie, Hot Babe both have gone down in this fight. It's just going nowhere for Zokorp.
And, I mean, still Kiwi, probably the one who's winning the most out of this for Zokorp, as they're going to be able to escape dying. And right now, though, again, everyone for Factor X is playing out of their minds. No one still died yet, still holding on to about 4 your ultimates here. Beat not that ready, not close here for Ducio, but they don't necessarily need it. Connie going back over to the Diva now. Hunter, like I kind of said, it feels like Factor X is in the heads of Zokorp. They're really second-guessing themselves a lot here.
No, they entirely are right now. You can see, once again, Pig Boy is around into the back. It could take one good pulse to be able to end this thing right here. Now, Hot Babe, of course, does have that cleanse taken out, ready to go. Gonna be thrown out. It's not going to get Wetu. Wetu, though, it's going to be taken care of anyway. Point is going to flip over momentarily. Might be carrying a lot of weight in that sentence, as Connie going to get forced out with the annihilation in total. Knocked out of the mech, just has to go die on the point, stall it out for as long as possible. And Stone realistically has to be the touch of Stone. Needs to hide away and try to live for overtime.
Pig Boy is chasing them, so they definitely know where Stone is. But right now, again, Connie now making their third tank swap of this map, going over, now back over to the Diva here. There's the touch from Stone. Overtime is here, but you look at what Zokorp's coming in here with. They have ultimates.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, Stone goes down with Pulse Bomb in the hand. Dubico doing them in. He's just trying to hang around. Of course, Pig Boy finally getting taken out as elimination comes through. Hot Babe making it happen. This means it's not quite over yet, as Hot Babe gets a second. And Hot Babe single-handedly might be pulling this one back, as it looks like in time, as Tizzy, while they are trying to maintain a presence on the point, Connie staying alive. It means that the stall game is working out fine, but Tizzy eventually's got the back off.
Yeah, I'm surprised Tizzy stalled out that long. I thought it would have been a little bit smart for them just to back out, but you finally see the first elims there for Zokorp this season. Took them a little bit long here, but you're still holding on to Beat and Pulse Bomb, so you're not in the worst spot, but Ducio also has their own Pulse Bomb or Beat here ready to go, so you could see Factor X come back in here pretty quickly.
Yeah, and it's just the double Beat, aggressive out the gate, Pulse Bomb, throw it into a crowd. Unfortunately, nobody catches it, but Tizzy has gotten the early pick. Wetu Beat taken care of. The former Factor X gone from the fight, as they're going to start trading out Pig Boy. Now going in exchange right now, but you're just trying to find those quick eliminations. Top 8 manages to TP out just in time. Unfortunately, is separated from Connie, who does not have a bomb to remech with. It caused the disruption, so now bodies forced off of the point. Stone is got to come back and be the retouch, but right now it is desperation time.
Hot Babe is there to try to keep this touch alive. The overtime the overtime is commencing here again. Consider out here from Noel, as Factor X just immediately starts finding picks.
Yeah, and Burt perhaps coming in with the victory. Deadeye momentarily here, as despite a little bit of fight back from Zokorp, it is Factor X taking a dominant start here on Oasis. And I mean, if the question was if they learned anything, if they improved from their previous season, the previous outing, the answer for now is a definitive yes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, Factor X, they were not necessarily happy with their loss in the grand finals. I mean, it was something you're so close to making to the international stage, and you just get it taken away from you there at the end. Zokorp, though, I mean, they played a really good series, a really good playoffs. As we kind of mentioned, got really hot at the right time, barely got in, and they just kind of swept their way through playoffs. Factor X, I mean, they are responding back here with a vengeance. That was a really good first round for them, first map for them as well. Only 3 deaths across the board there for Factor X, and 2 of them were Pig Boy. So 3 members of Factor X did not die that first map. You look over at Zokorp, though, you had 4 players die more than 5 times there, so it was a really, really rough map for them. However, like I said, it's week 1. You have to imagine there's going to be some rust, and with Factor X actually playing in that Andromeda tournament, that rust might not necessarily be there because they are actively playing in another form of competition.
Yeah, and that's how it is in that situation. Even if you don't have every single member that is actively, playing in this, even if you have a simple core being able to go into the situation, you still know, hey, these players are getting the reps and they are making it happen. And honestly, the fact that they're able to take this momentum, I think it is indicative of the fact that they have come into the situation knowing how they feel, not having the initial jitters that I think a lot of teams have in these situations right here. But either way, we're going to get ready to prepare for the second map. We know where we're headed. It is Zokorp's pick this time around. They're taking us over to Circuit Royale, and when you go from a closed-in control map to the wide-open Circuit Royale, it can definitely be a bit of a seismic shift when it comes to playstyle.
Yeah, and especially with Hazard being banned out last map by leaders, it really puts them into a tough spot of who to ban out. Do you ban out Cassidy? Well, then you just leave Freya, you leave Soj, you leave Ashe, you leave Widow, especially on a map like Circle Riot. You find a lot of value where that Sim is still there, Mei is still there. We saw a lot of that in South America last season. I mean, this really does just leave it open for Factor X to potentially ban out Ramatra, seeing what else maybe Zokorp has in their tank pool here to really play with, knowing that they want to try to prefer playing a little bit of a Hazard style, which you can definitely play here, especially if you get rid of probably one of the biggest opponents to a Hazard right now being Ramatra.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, on this map especially, you will see the Ramatra a very heavily amount. Of course, Sigma is still one of the more played tank, but we see a lot of teams, and I think even still as late, will play that Ramatra Mei style and play really heavily on a lot of these corners, and you can have a lot of impact in a situation like that, because obviously when you go into the situation, it's hard to really push on that corner because you could try to take that high ground over. But, I mean, Dex, where we see a lot of teams get held, is that very corner going to that outside area, because teams just struggle to push through that because you have to swing wide into this big, open, empty lane. And that's what makes that first point of, of Circle Rail so difficult. I think in comparison to second or third, we see more teams be held in that opening area than anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely saw a couple times last year, especially in South America, where one team would full hold a team, the attack team on the offensive side, and then just swap sides and do an even better hold on the defense side to win the map. I mean, this map is so divisive when you look at just any region it is, because you could have a really good defense on the first point, end up just giving it up at the end, and then just get rolled after that, or vice versa. Have a terrible defense first point, and then you just hold second point, because I really do believe second point push of Circuit Royale is one of the more difficult pushes, or the most difficult push in the game here. But hey, have our second ban. Widowmaker was number 1. Orisa going to be number 2.
Yeah, and neither is a particular shock of the situation right here. I doubt you really want to let somebody like Big Boy go in and just pop off on the Widowmaker. And the same thing can be said when you have a situation where Connie, who has been so consistent, and we saw a lot of that Orisha from Connie, because I honestly, when Orisa started coming through, South America was that region that was showing off that hero force more than anybody in the beginning. So I'm happy to see it come out in this situation right here, because this is them knowing ahead of time, knowing, hey, if Connie is going to make a swap, if Connie needs to go something in an emergency situation, this is a good go-to pick for them.
Yeah, absolutely. But right now, it's going to be interesting to see what we see from each team. We have about 15 seconds to talk about. I mean, you did see Tizzy for a brief moment there before it locked everyone back into the spawns, potentially showing Malga. Very interesting pick, especially for the defensive side. But Widowmaker banned out here. Freya is probably a hero I would expect to see. Yeah, you do see it from Burt, especially on the defense side. That makes a lot of sense. Pig Boy, though, also playing another hit scan, so a double hit scan kind of style here from Factor X on the defense side. I don't necessarily hate that, especially when you look at the rest of this team here for Factor X. It is a very heavy damage-based composition. Null on that Zenyatta. I mean, if you can 5-orb someone, you're probably dying. Ducio on the Baptiste. Remember, Bap was banned out map 1, so now back in play. Both teams are playing it, but there's that Mei you were talking about coming out from Stone, and Seal Kiwi right now at least showing us that they're going to play the Brig. Very, very interesting pick, in my opinion, on the attacking side. It really lets me know they probably want to play a little bit up with Connie, because Connie was kind of getting caught out in a lot of rough situations last map.
Yeah, I don't think the choice whatsoever. Give a little bit of backup, a little bit of extra care, because that really can make the difference at the end of the day. But of course, I want to see how it works here in the very beginning, because we see a lot of teams sacrifice this initial line. You look for picks, but you never want to take the fight here if you don't necessarily have to as well. Expended, Tizzy can be forced back a little further, but is still trying to hold their ground directly under the bridge. But yes, we know inevitably they're going to get pushed back to the corner.
Yeah, but this is a normal thing we see a lot in this map. You either see teams hold that first corner for as long as they can, then just hold at point, or pretend they're going to hold at first corner, then just come back to the bridge, because it's such a hard choke to get through. Right now, Tizzy might be in a hard spot.
Yeah, a little bit, just consistently getting walled off. It's kind of hard to deal with. We do see still Kiwi get super low, and in fact, does get taken out. Connie not in the best of scenarios either, and it's going to be a good start once again here for Factor X. But the bright side is Hot Babe is already right there to the first ult.
I mean, that you should really expect that from Baps, especially in this kind of playstyle where everyone's playing so close to each other and there's a lot of damage that's being put up by the enemy team. That Baps is going to build up to the damage very, very quickly. So it's going to be really important for Null to build up to that Transcends here quickly, but that's just not going to happen. However, you did notice that Null was getting a lot of assists in that first fight. Almost gets taken out. That Discord Orb, it does a lot, especially to a Nemesis form Baptiste. I mean, Nemesis form Ramatra.
Yeah, and you see Tizzy gonna have to back out with that Nemesis form, which means there's a big opportunity right here and now to go in with the aggression. You see double amp matrix being used, and that is a trade, but unfortunately for Zokorp, that is not the trade that I would take right there. Losing my tank this early on means you don't have the ability to push forward super hard as they're gonna pull in with the bolo shot. Immortality field gonna be thrown away. For Hot Babe, it's gonna work out, and actually, it should keep them alive momentarily, but unfortunately, win them the fight, it shall not.
I mean, two big ultimates used there by both teams. That Amp Matrix, you also did see Bert throw in that Bola shot, which again, I don't normally look at as a really strong ultimate, but with how Bert's playing right now, they should be able to build it up to another one quickly here. But you look at Annihilation for Tizzy compared to Connie. Tizzy has theirs ready to go. Connie, 65% and counting. It's kind of lagging behind, and right now with 100 seconds left to go, Hunter, if this is a quick fight here for Factor X coming out on top of it, Connie might not even have that Annihilation ready to go for potentially a final fight.
Potentially not, but Wetsuit wants to go in a little aggressive. They're going to swing that corner pretty hard, forcing everybody to play back against that wall. Tizzy, though, does have to play out in the open a little bit. He's going to have that Annihilation. Unfortunately, Connie does not have it to match. So if anytime Tizzy wants to go aggro, they have the ability to, on top of the fact that we don't really have support ultimates to trade it out. Is Pig Boy going to go aggressive? No. Going to be happy to go in with this Tranquility, as people are going to just getting caught out right after the freeze, right after that Tranquility ends, and while they're keeping touches on, Tizzy has to make the difficult choice whether or not to invest any further, and they will.
I mean, they were going to invest there. I mean, you want to try to get everyone back in. This is still a very holdable point right now, but it's going to be very, very difficult with this Amp Matrix.
Yeah, and that hold will eventually come to an end. A little less than a minute there, but they'll get back up to a little over 3 minutes to get this push going, and the bright side is you got everything out of Factor X during this fight, and now you still have Annihilation and a rally if you're Zokorp.
Yes, you can play very aggressively here, which is exactly what they're doing, but I think the biggest thing there was Stone actually forcing Null out there and using that Transcendence. It allowed that Blizzard to go for free. It allowed the Amp Matrix there from Hot Babe to find so much value, and it allowed Connie to basically hold on to this Annihilation, knowing that they don't necessarily have to worry about Transcendence to really slow it down here. So you can see him play very aggressive, and with how they're positioning themselves right now, Hunter, they are really looking for it. I mean, if you're Factor X, you know they are looking for that opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. And you're trying to build up to something right here. Is Rally going to be used a little bit early on? Why not? It's going to be able to help keep Connie within this. Keep pushing up. Take that corner over as Lucio. Let's go ahead and go aggressive with their own Amp Matrix. Everything being thrown in with that Kitchen Sink. Bert manages to help out Tizzy and get rid of Connie, but unfortunately, Stone's still hanging around. Not going to make it that easy, but eventually, everybody going to get out, take a bit of a reset. But once again, it's a scenario where you take what? It was like the 3-for-2 ult trade right there. You got to be all right if you're Zokorp.
Yeah, the 3-for-2 ult trade, but again, you got rid of both support ultimates there for Factor X. So if you're Zokorp, you see it, you have a Blizzard. You have nothing that can truly stop a Blizzard other than just an Immortality field, which you can get rid of pretty quickly. So that could be an ultimate that really just wins the fight on their own. Hot Babe not that far away from another Amp Matrix, especially going up this hill. Hot Babe's gonna find a lot of value just putting it in the right spot, and Web2, that overclock ready to go. I mean, right now, if you're Zokorp, you are in the driver's seat here. You only have to truly deal with the overclock from Pig Boy here if you play fast.
Yeah, looks like they want you're going to see the soul wall onto Tizzy. Immortality field is used there momentarily. Everything being thrown at Tizzy to keep them alive. Unfortunately, does not happen with the tank down. Could be terrifying. Stone getting caught with the double hit. Unfortunately, for Factor X is going to stay alive as bodies start throwing themselves onto the point. Unfortunately, no one really there to make it happen, so Pig Boy is just going to have to take the late death on the card here. As Connie hiding away as Pig Boy is eventually going to get whipped out as 2.5 minutes on the clock for Factor X.
Yeah, right now, I mean, Zokorp, after a little bit of let's be honest here, a sluggish start to start off this entire series. Seem like they got their feet back under them now. They're able to win team fights. It seems like they finally were able to get over the first map here a little bit and really bounce back so far. You have the overclock ready to go here. Web2 never used it, not that far away from the rally. Steel Kiwi has, and Connie again gonna have Annihilation here pretty soon. But you look at the Bola and the Annihilation, and as well as the Transcendence ready here for Factor X. I mean, Factor X is really just probably letting this cart be pushed up here. They have the ultimates to really take the cart back and just force out some other ultimates here from Zokorp.
Yeah, you said transition to the high ground. Still Kiwi, though, does end up getting caught out early. As what you think they can still find some magic here, and with Ducio and Pig Boy down, I think magic indeed has been found. But Tizzy, unfortunately, still hanging around. Noel can't forget about them clearing up the houses now. Unfortunately for Stone and Connie, they are in a bit of a weird situation right now, as one of them is certainly not getting out of here alive, at least you would think.
I mean, with Stone and Steel Kiwi around, they can definitely make sure that Connie stays alive and even force out the Annihilation. This is perfect scenario right here for them.
Yeah, and it's not going to get its value either. You're forcing bodies back, but you're going to have to leave eventually. Tizzy is literally just getting bullied on the front line here as Ducio getting pushed away. Everyone needs to run as far away as you can if you're Factor X. Nola's still hanging around, might have to use the ult just to live here, and now it is going to be a struggle to win this next fight.
I mean, you do have the Transcendence ready here for Null, so that's gonna be your stall tactic just to get back out to the cart. For the rest of your team, really nothing. Burt making the swap here. You really have to get that Transcendence out there just to make sure you can stall, because Tizzy's gonna get melted.
Tizzy will, and Tizzy gets frozen, but Tizzy gets frozen off the point. You can't let that happen. Even if you get frozen, even if you get hit with the Annihilation, you have all that sustain through the Tranquility, and they don't even get the chance to do it, Dex.
It's a rough look there for Factor X. All that momentum you had, especially with the performance you had in map 1 where your team only had 2 players die throughout the entire map. This one, with how that ended right there, all that momentum's gone, and now you have to kind of mentally rebuild right now, which again, that's one thing that Redder did let us know about, that they are struggling a little bit with just communication. But again, it's a new season. That should be something that gets better as the year goes, or as the season goes on. But right now, it's week 1. You really don't want to be making a mistake like that this early.
Yeah, you really don't. But now, got to try to make it work just as healthily on the defensive side. And still Kiwi, perhaps doing a little bit of shenanigans, but we say shenanigans, but actually we've seen Lifeweaver quite a few times on this map here, and definitely debating the efficacy of using Lifeweaver here, but looks like they're going to go with it.
Well, Lifeweaver, I mean, especially has been starting to really pick up the play, at least in NA. There's a lot of other regions that don't necessarily see Lifeweaver as viable, but Lifeweaver, even people who don't play it will say, is a little bit busted at the moment. And this is really a map where Lifeweaver just finds so much value. It allows Kind to play aggressively while the rest of that team is really set up to kind of play back. And you can easily get them out of a jam here, but you already see Factor X here, or my bad, Zokorp, just already playing back at the bridge. I mean, they are just letting Factor X get this cart progress.
Yeah, honestly, you're fine with that because you are going to be strongest on this upcoming corner. You have the Armatra, you have the Mei, and in case Connie or anybody gets into a lot of trouble, still Kiwi is just going to be able to pull them out of the fight, and that's why you see Connie playing very aggressively, because even if Connie gets into a rough situation, they're going to be pulled out just like that.
Yeah, there's no Mei on the other side that could have denied that right there for Factor X. So that really is why this Lifeweaver is going to end up finding so much value, especially from Steel Kiwi. But, I mean, still, you have to deal with Null on the other side in that Discord orb. If Connie gets maybe a little bit too far forward, or something like that where you get 5 orbs, you are going to put yourself into a bad spot.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in that position, as you're going to get pulled back if you are. Hot Babe Connie's still hanging around, as unfortunately, you kind of have to respect that and play to that back corner. But Hot Babe is down. Connie is going to have a new nemesis form right here, as Wet2 barely gets out alive. So the goal really is to burn away Connie, but Connie getting super low, still has care from Still Kiwi, but unfortunately gets pulled away from the point, forcing Stone to drop. And unfortunately, the inevitable is here. This will be a quick take for Factor X.
Yeah, really good job. I mean, only losing out 1 member for that entire round. I mean, right now you have 5 minutes on the time bank. You're in a really good spot. You have your Transcendence. You're gonna have Amp Matrix, and I mean, while the rest of your team is kind of lagging behind those ultimates, those 2 ultimates right there really get you decently too close to the second point. Potentially, maybe even get you the second point without the chance of any ultimates coming online here from Zokorp. But that tree will be online. The Blizzard not that far away from Stone, and Connie will have their own Annihilation here ready to go quicker than what Tizzy will.
Yeah, and this is going to be really interesting to see how much these teams are going to be willing to throw into this fight right here. As Tree of Life is going to be used really early on, but it doesn't save Connie from being decimated on the spot. And now Stone having to be pulled away. So Kiwi, though, has to try to preserve their own life, but they're getting pushed back harder and harder. And now with, you see Tizzy pushing up, 3 staying on the card here. A reach here is possible, but I don't even know if I would risk it here.
You might, especially since you have Annihilation and Blizzard online here for Zokorp, but actually no, Tizzy's gonna deny it. Not even a chance. Good job by Tizzy, but look at all the ultimates that are online here. Already Wet Tube starting off with 1 and finding a pick.
Yeah, and it's gonna stop them right here, so it's gonna be a small victory as Wet Tube getting a second. Really taking it to Factor X and Tizzy Force in the corner, but Noel decides to shut that right down on the spot. As with Wet Tube being gone here, they're going to keep trying to play up here. And honestly, at this point, I don't blame them from just committing where they're at.
Now they really need to try to eat away some time here, but now the overclock coming out here from Big Boy.
Yep, Freeze is online, does manage to catch onto 1 person, so you take the trade out. As Connie will get rid of her, unfortunately, Connie has to force the Annihilation just to stay alive. Tizzy in a weird scenario where they also have their own Annihilation. Not going to use it though, and despite it still going back and forth, that is the absolute correct call to hold on to it.
Yeah, I mean, you still have it. Your team's able to win that team fight if they start pushing the card back here again, though. That would be the thing you really need to start doing if you're Factor X. Ducio finding Wet Tube out, but now Stone coming back on the Tracer, having to really try to get rid of Noel, who's going to be able to keep himself alive here. Finally, everyone back on the card, but because of these late swaps here for Zokorp, you do see ultimates are kind of lagging behind. That Annihilation, that Transcendence are going to be doing so much for this Factor X squad as they start to round this final curve to the home stretch.
Yeah, Connie back over on this Diva, sees the entire team around the corner, decides maybe this isn't where I want to be. Maybe I want to back out. As you're to see the team transition over back towards the point. And honestly, that's fine. Pressured away because it forces Connie and Stone to have to drop in, make these touches, and still Kiwi does have the Tree of Life if they wanted to commit hard to here. And honestly, they're thinking about it as Tizzy is forced into the room, though, has an Annihilation. Tree of Life being thrown in as Pigboy manages to catch on to Stone of all people. And now you kind of lose that extra factor to hold on to the point as Factor X are just drilling for it.
I think that was the wrong point to use the tree. I think you really need to hold it for this final kind of fight here. Using it at early allows now Factor X to use these 2 ultimates basically for free, knowing there's going to be no one to really stop them.
Yeah, this time you are hoping from a touch from the defending squad as didn't quite go through for Factor X as Noel easily forced to use the Transcendence. That is really nice for it to come out then and there, but you still have to try to take advantage of it. It's a weird area to be in right here as Noel is in the back line and is just trying to pot shot away, manages to get rid of 1. Needs to find a little more if they want to find some success. Unfortunately, it might not be here as Tizzy and Bert are going for it to try to end this right here and now. And let me tell you, Dex, I think they're successful. They're going to finish with the Pulse Bomb sticking, by the way. Maybe not quite yet as that's a funny little hee-haw. Unfortunately, it'll just buy an extra 10 seconds, and now it's going to be 3:04 versus a minute, a 2-minute differential here for Factor X.
Yeah, I mean, Factor X, again, they are really proving something here, especially early on in this season for South America. They want to prove that they are the top dogs. I mean, they were really good going into last season's playoffs. They were able to beat out Elements, which was a team that both me and you really thought was going to be able to run the table there, considering how good, or no, it wasn't Elements. Who was the other team?
Warfist?
Yes, Warfist. They beat out Warfist, who both me and you kind of thought were going to be able to run the table there in that South American tier last season. But no, like Elements and Warfist fell apart in the playoffs. Both got knocked down after their first 2 games. But essentially right now, Factor X is trying to put themselves on top of the leaderboards here early on. A minute, though, here for Zokorp. Not necessarily the worst scenario. I mean, this is the most amount of time you could get with the amount of time they had after they finished. But if you're Factor X, I mean, this might be an opportunity that you say, let's go hold at the first corner. It's not necessarily the worst idea because you could basically hold there for that first minute and put Zokorp into a spot where any fight after that will be happening in overtime.
Yeah, and honestly, the biggest thing is you're going to have a lot of success playing back on this big corner that we keep kind of mentioning because you have the ability to kind of play this long-range style. Because even if Tizzy is over on the Racha, Tizzy on their Racha can be just as good at long range as they are at short range. But now, we are going to see a Zokorp team without a Life Weaver this time around, which honestly, Life Weaver was fine. Unfortunately, the Tree of Life just weren't convenient when they were used as decks. Again, gonna see them back off at this first corner as Bird gets taken out.
That's a huge pick there for Zokorp. You really need to go in because Burr was doing a lot last round on that Ashe. The dynamites were huge. The one time we saw Bob, it put them into a spot where no one could really do a lot of healing there. But right now you see it, this cart rounding into this little kind of choke point here where this attacking team normally struggles. No one really close to an ultimate, so Hunter, we're gonna have a dry fight here to decide this round potentially.
That is a real reality right now. The closest person is currently Hot Babe, 60% and counting. Would be really tough to pull out because you really have anything to really respond with as Tizzy is being hit from literally every single side. There's nothing they can do except hold that block and pray that someone finds a pick at the right time, and Bert happens to be that person as we're entering the 5v4. No backup is coming by. Hot Babe, though, is going to have the ult just in time to make the difference. As Null right around the corner from there. Transcendence 90% and counting. All Tizzy has to do is survive on this point, and then they should be able to play with the Transcendence and push hard.
Okay, going on that offense, going to be able to find Hot Babe here. Connie trying to do what they can, but that Discord orb on them will basically seal the deal. And Factor X stops Zokorp just at that finish line there for that first point. And honestly, the Ashe dying there early on the round really, I feel like, ended up helping out Factor X. It allowed Ashe to get up to that high point, that high ground point where you get so many good angles, and they immediately were able to come back in, find a pick, and start the downfall of that round there for Zokorp. But now, 3 minutes and 4 seconds here to basically cap the first point. And remember, Factor X basically capped this first point in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, their first time around. So now they get an extra minute. But we talked about here, Hunter, this is one of these maps where a full hold can be outdone by an even fuller hold.
Yeah, it can, and we've seen it many times before, even in overtime situations. And now it's the question of how much have you learned in this scenario, and you're going to see a swap up. Still Kiwi currently sitting on the Lucio, which does beg the question of how you want to play this, because this could mean what you initially talked about Factor X doing and playing up on that first corner aggressively, because with the Lucio, you have that ability to do so.
Yeah, but this is one of the situations where I really like the Lifeweaver over the Lucio, especially first point. I think Lifeweaver on first point of this map might be the strongest that Lifeweaver is on any map. But again, having the speed is never necessarily a bad thing. Beat is still very strong ultimate. But again, you have to remember, overtime, everyone has the major perks already, so you know Stone is going to be playing up just to try to get those frees on the Tizzy, because that's really slowed them down when they had it in that first round.
Yep, 100%. And now this first pick could make all of the difference, because obviously you don't want to let it just be a one-fight scenario as well to nearly get sniped across the map by Null. As I hear some O's in the chat there, Mr. Dexatron.
Stone is playing very far up, had to ice block early. Null, though, this Zen has been such a fun pick.
It's been great, and now just floating to the next high ground. We are now in one-fight territory, and there's still 2.5 minutes as they're going to get this big corner for free.
But this isn't the worst case here for Zokorp. Again, they took a fight on that first point. It's never the worst case when it's something like this, because you're able to come back in. If you win a team fight, it's very difficult for the attacking team to get back to the spot. You look at the ultimates coming online. Really nothing for either side, so it's going to be a dry fight again, but we saw teams build up 2 ultimates in a minute last time. That definitely lets us know they can do it again here.
Yep, Tizzy going to get walled off. Going to be able to get around it pretty quickly. So we see some aggression here inside from Pig Boy, who has got to take the mega health back, but everybody's getting low, and unfortunately, low is becoming nothing. As Tizzy just needs to hang alive. So many ults hanging around the corner. Not even going to be necessary as another quick take. Factor X already sitting at match point, 1 map away from righting the wrongs of the past.
Hey, righting the wrongs of the past here in week 1 is a good thing, but they probably have their sights set a little bit later on in the season, especially for the Zokorp team. But hey, winning week 1 is never a bad thing. But again, I mean, Hunter, when you get a chance to look at the stats, this Factor X squad, incredibly consistent across the board. Everyone on the team, the least amount of kills on the team was Ducio with 20. I mean, this was a team that was playing incredibly well, incredibly consistent as well. I mean, very, very smart plays, and I think a lot of it really comes down to Tizzy. Again, that was the player that Redder really wanted us to focus on here. They were talking about Tizzy a lot. It looks like they had their cup of coffee before this game, because even Redder said if they don't have that cup of coffee, they probably end up getting rolled here in this series. And right now, well, Factor X might be rolling over Zokorp, but this was a better map for Zokorp. We cannot just let that one go. The first map over to this map was so much better. They were almost able to put it together, heading into map 3, I think it might be the time here that Zokorp puts that map together, wins the map, and makes us into a series.
I mean, yeah, that's what you got to do in the situation right here. We're going to see whether or not that ends up being the case, as we do know what map we're going to next, as Honey Hee Ha Hunter, geez ooey, has messed up one of the graphics. So everyone, we're just going to pretend that there is a nice little, you can see about a tiny sliver of New Junk City right there, just kind of sitting there. So we know what's happening here. You know, there's no big surprise. We know what's supposed to be happening. Let's just all pretend that it's there and have a really good time about it.
Yeah, New Junk City could be our map here. Flashpoint, very interesting, especially considering a lot of teams really like to play Surabasa. Atlas, wish it was in the map pool, but it's not. New Junk City, though, this has been a map that, especially since the rework, I feel like it's starting to get a lot of more play, especially by a lot of teams just going there to try to play a certain play style. Ramatra going to be banned out this time around, which, again, is very, very interesting considering that, yeah, both teams have played Ramatra both maps so far. Or we had whatever second point of Oasis was for Zokorp, where they were really swapping out a lot of tanks. But right now, I mean, heading into New Junk City, Hazard's potential, Orisa potential. You could still see something like a Junker Queen. I feel like Junker Queen really does find a lot of value here. This is a good Winston map, a good Diva map. Wrecking Ball finds a lot of value. I mean, there's a lot of options at that tank line. That second ban, though, from Factor X, it's going to be really interesting to see what they go with. Because outside of that, do you potentially say ban out something like a Lucio here? Because you didn't necessarily need it last map.
No, you definitely didn't. And you saw it debuted a little bit there from Still Kiwi. But you're going into a New Junk City, which means you're going to a map that's going to rely very heavily on the brawl. And now this is where the possibility of Hazard comes into play. Because even if this is very brawl-centric, I think you can get away with a lot on Hazard, especially the changes that we have had on this map, because note, we didn't have these changes last season when these teams faced each other on Flashpoint. Things were still the same as they were before, so I'm curious how those differences are going to be as, at the moment, Dex. Venture ends up being the pick. That is... It's interesting, but to be fair, Venture was getting away with a lot of heinous stuff the last times we were casting Overwatch. Let's be real.
Yeah, absolutely, but I feel like the Venture pick is a very interesting one, considering Tracer's now back available. You remember how Pigboy was playing Tracer back on map 1, where, I mean, at a point in that first point, they were 13, 14, 15, and 0. Like, they were leaving their mark on this series here very early on, but you get rid of the Venture. I mean, it's not the worst ban. Venture does fire a decent amount of value, but still, you leave Tracer wide open. I feel like you're just allowing Pigboy to really, really dominate a lot. But again, this is coming from Factor X. We did see Venture for a brief moment from Zokorp on Circuit Royale.
Yeah, we honestly did in that situation. To be fair, I don't play him. I think Venture's still a really good character overall. Obviously not a meta pick by any means, but if you have somebody that can go in and play that Venture and really knows how to handle that backline pressure properly like you would a Tracer, it can have a big difference. So I don't hate the idea of trying to do that, because you could see somebody like Stone go into that situation where they might try to make something like that happen. That's who I'm most curious of, is Stone in the situation, because you would think, coming to mind in a scenario like this, they might just kind of simply go back and play the Tracer. But we know they're capable of playing more than just that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just seeing the little bug that you have with the but hey, coming out of the gate, I mean, Junk Queen was a hero that we thought we would see, and not surprised. Stone and WebTube doing at least teasing us right now with double flex DPS. Really, really fun if that's the case. It's gonna put Factor X in a little bit of a problem just being able to move around. But you look at the majority of their roster at the moment. Well, now with Null swapping back over to the BAP, not necessarily as mobile of a composition, especially with Tizzy playing the Orisa here, which is very, very interesting. I feel like this is really a composition where Zokorp wants to try to make sure that Factor X is always having to kind of watch behind them, like look around every corner, making sure that that DPS line is not just looking to dive on them.
No, exactly. You want to be able to avoid that as much as humanly possible in a scenario like this. Either way, got to be able to get a good start once again. Keep carrying that momentum as Tizzy getting pulled back in, needs a bit of care. Eventually has to use that golden form as Connie and Co. I mean, nothing stops them from moving forward here. Nothing stops them from just pressing on, starting to make the drops onto the point. It's going to be really hard to make any kind of difference as you see Connie being forced away from it, Cleanse being activated as Null being down, and point flipping over. Tizzy might have gotten one, but their death is inevitable.
Yeah, and this might be a time here where you see Factor X quickly make swaps. They were probably really expecting a little bit of a brawl composition coming out here from Zokorp, and with the Junk Queen and dual flex DPS, you're really not going to be getting that kind of play style. You're going to be getting one that really wants to rush you down instead. So it's going to be a really interesting. Tizzy, though, not going to make the swap here. You already see Null going over to the Kiriko instead of that Baptist. It's a little bit of a better option, but I mean, you now have to find a pick early here, because I think the only way that Factor X truly has any advantage is if they have that first pick go their way.
Yeah, 100% is Wedgetip going to be forced out in time. As you have to start moving forward, because obviously you are in one-fight territory because of how late things headed. You see the immediate jump onto Tizzy as they try to drive out the backline. Cleanse being used, TP is going to be activated, but Ducio has been taken care of. Still, Kiwi's got not one, but two to get this, as you see Tizzy eventually realize, you know what, this is not going to get anywhere. Let's take the restart. And you got to wonder if Tizzy's going to hold out for the ultimate or perhaps make the swap early.
I think you need to make the swap. I understand you're close to the ultimate.
Pulse?
Pigboy throwing out their pulse bomb right there. Would not necessarily surprise me if that means they might be swapping off, but I think the Tracer's going to be what they're going to stick with. But Tizzy, let's see, they're holding for the ultimate here, and I mean, they will have the closer spawn here to this next point, so they should be able to get set up. But you look at the ultimates going on here for Zokorp. You have the Consuming Rush, you have a pulse bomb, not that far away from Blade, and most importantly, that Terror, or no, my bad, the Rampage and Beat, not that far behind. Deadeye, though, already out here from Bert.
Yeah, you might want to pull them in. You thought about it, had a moment of time. You might try to find something. Is Bird not going to find anything? I might have tried to combine those ultimates as Stick goes through, as they're going to pull them back in. It's not going to get a whole lot, but people are peeking at weird angles as Tizzy is sitting at, honestly, a really rough angle to get care, as point will eventually go their way. It's a rough outing. It does take quite a few ultimates, but they will get the point for now.
But here's the thing, for the cost of a couple ultimates from each side, I mean, there was a pretty even ult trade, and Factor X came out on top. Rampage, it's a big Rampage, but there's the follow-up you're looking for.
Yeah, that is devastating how that goes for Factor X right there, as they're only going to be able to get about 32, make it 33%. Unfortunately, I loved Tizzy's idea of being able to try to lock Connie into them and kill them, but Connie said, I'm not trapped in here with you, you're trapped in here with me.
And again, Tizzy's still sticking with this Orisa. I feel like both me and you are pretty adamant that right now this Orisa's really not doing everything you want to do. Connie really does have a huge advantage on the Orisa because of the huge hitbox that they have. And this DPS line is also just causing a lot of problems as well.
Yeah, and Tizzy, all Tizzy can do is stand in that corner, just honestly just keep taking punishment. That's not necessarily what you want to have to do as a tank here, as still Kiwi getting super low. Beat now going to be used, people diving in, and with both supports down, it might be a matter of time. Connie, of course, can hang around for a pretty long period of time, but Connie this time, the one being bullied off the point, as Stone being taken down and 70% on the board. A Blade is ready, but Ducio does not have a beat to match.
Yeah, but right now you have Burt with the Deadeye, who could really use the Deadeye to cancel out the Blade. So it's a give and take kind of ultimate trade you might see here. But that was a really good fight there by Factor X. They played it slow and waited for their opportunity. Steel Kiwi just got very low and put themselves in a bad spot. Tried to get away, but Tizzy, understand they had a bigger health pool, was able to chase after them and get rid of them. Now though, this pulse not ready for Pigboy. I'm waiting for it here.
Yeah, and here it is. Deflect is already out, and Burt gets rid of two. Unfortunate situation as 85% and counting on the board. Burt with the 4K. The Pigboy takes away the ace, but they will manage to tie it up here on New Junk City.
And again, like I kind of said, that Deadeye was really going to be there to cancel out the Blade, and Stone really had nothing to do. Noel's Kitsune Rush really did end up helping them out there, because that skull would probably not have came up that fast onto Stone, so it really helped them out there. But now Pulse Bomb, Kitsune Rush ready for the other side. Tizzy's Terror Surge gonna be the biggest thing here right now for this Factor X team, because I imagine Pigboy might be looking for a combo with them.
Yeah, you could see a very aggressive push here from Connie with this Shadow as soon as they get a little bit more care. Because, again, you know Ducio does not have this beat to sustain right now. The only person you have to worry about is Null, as Pulse Bomb being forced out. Terror Surge activated, eventually going to go through catch on the bodies. That cleanse only hits onto one member. Unfortunately, the other two taking the heat as eventually it goes away. The problem is they used a lot in that engagement.
I mean, both teams actually used a decent amount there. Yeah, you got 4 ultimates out from the other side, I actually believe. And you only use the Terror Surge, which I thought the Terror Surge would be a little bit more impactful, but that Rampage from Connie, it's just too much right now for this Factor X lineup. Pigboy, though, still holding on to the Pulse Bomb. They've been holding on to it now for a couple fights, so they're really looking for the opportunity to use it, especially as they're really playing on their own. But Pigboy, that's a huge pick right there, but you immediately lose Bert.
Yeah, and Pulse Bomb doesn't stick either. Null is eventually hunted down, and now Pigboy, despite the heroics, can't really do anything in this scenario, but honestly probably just die. They're hanging around, which is nice and all, but eventually everyone's got to try to come together as they're prolonging this fight, unfortunately, Dex.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a mistake here by Factor X, but Tizzy and I think Pigboy or Ducio were just a little bit too far in, so they either had to try to find a way out, which Tizzy really didn't have that opportunity to. Ducio could have backed out, Pigboy could have backed out as well. Now, though, you're coming back into this next engagement here. If you really even try to get a fight here on this point, you will have Beat and Deadeye. You have a chance, but there's the touch, so they're at least going to commit to a fight here.
Yeah, that much is this nice. Pigboy gets really close there as Bert ready to go with that. Deadeye is going to pop it around the corner, and now you got to be careful because they're probably going to have to hand over this touch as Still Kiwi gets caught in the very back is 99% for Zokorp. Even with Still Kiwi down, though, this fight is still very active and changeable.
And you get rid of Pigboy, who I think has been the biggest problem here for this Zokorp squad.
Yeah, Beats gets used for the blade as well. Stone ends up having to just sit there and take all that damage. Eventually, it's going to go through point. Going to be pressure. That's all you can really do in this scenario. Recall being presented for WedTube right here. You have to try to solo in on one target because that's what you have to do with Factor X. That's where your struggle is. So you've got to make it happen. You see it coming through. Everybody is super low. You need to hit Still Kiwi. You eventually do. And now Tizzy might be forced to use this ultimate here as they're getting super low. Going to go through, pull them in. It pulls Connie away from everybody, and it's massive.
That Rampage basically got denied there by that Terror Surge. Connie would have been able to hit 3 or 4. I believe they only ended up hitting 2 because of it. And because of that, there, look, Factor X is going to be able to keep control of the point. And now Zokorp is in that kind of decision mode here where are they going to decide to engage onto this point? I mean, you're going to have a beat, you're going to have a pulse bomb. But is that going to be necessarily enough for you in the early part of this fight? Connie looking like they're going to get set up here for a touch. WedTube, though, lurking in the shadows. There's your touch. Another fight here on our 3rd point.
Yep, 100%. It could be important. Pulse Bomb is out. Again, though, it misses. Still Kiwi does get stunned out. Ultimates around the corner. Still Kiwi, though, was the one. It's closest, and now there's no beat with them. Connie has got to play some heroics. Unfortunately, the squad is dying before them one at a time. Pigboy getting another, and now Factor X are only 1 point away from having the clean sweep.
And again, we go back to this Orisa that me and you kind of criticize here a little bit. I think Tizzy, they've been playing it a little bit slower, a little bit more passive, and playing around corners. I think it's working out for them a lot because it's forcing Connie, it's forcing Stone, it's forcing WedTube to really have to peek around just to make sure they find Tizzy out, and that's really where they've been being punished now. Deadeye ready here for Bert early on. They've been able to find one pick with it the last couple times, not that far away from Kitsune and a beat. So right now, Factor's in a good spot. Beat ready though for Still Kiwi. WedTube holding on to their pulse bomb, so you have ultimates ready here for Zokorp. It's just gonna depend which the first one used here, and Bert, I would not be surprised if they use their Deadeye again just to make sure they cap point.
At 100%, you see that Deadeye ready to go. B has been activated. Connie, though, is still in danger as they're trying to wait for the body to come through, barely escaping is Stone, and now no immediate ultimates on the table. This is going to be a dry fight as Bert has gotten rid of another, and the collapse come through once more as Tizzy gets rid of 3, and now Stone might have to play some heroics on this next fight.
This DPS line for Factor X, they have been impressing me a lot this entire series. Pigboy, again, we believe that this is a new addition to this roster. They are really shining, no matter what hero they're playing. Tizzy, like I said before the last fight, has really got a lot better as this map went on the Orisa. And look, even Connie realized that the Jungle Queen, not the case anymore, not the way to go. Gonna be mirroring them now.
Yeah, and to be fair, it is desperation times, but you have to try to make something happen and go for it. And I can't blame Connie in the slightest. You're to see a Consider Rush being activated. Blade is also hanging around. Bert being taken care of as, unfortunately for Tizzy, they're separated from the rest of the squad. Not going to engage the ultimate as everyone is going to throw their bodies onto the point as Pulse Bomb will stick. And it will get a lot of big damage as Stone has no more deep flex standing as, unfortunately, Pigboy, last one alive, cut through. But to be fair, to do that all for a 75%, which is basically one fight territory, you got to be fine with that.
Yeah, and you only use the Pulse Bomb. You have your Terror Surge. and you're going to be building up to a lot of other ultimates fast. You look at the other side right now, there's really no ultimates ready here at the first part of this fight. So if you're Factor X, you could really come in, play aggressively, have Connie pull them all in, and try to really clean up a fight here quickly, get that point, and then by the time that you see Zokorp re-engage, if that all happens, you would probably have the rest of your ultimates ready to go.
Yeah, 100%. And now Tizzy could be the hero for the squad right here. Barely helping getting out, but they get pulled back in. Basically a solo mode over on Duet 2, but unfortunately it doesn't take care of business. And the flip does come through at the end of the day, and Dex Lidis not even understate how important that flip is, even if Factor X is going to have to back right off.
Again, I think this is a point where Factor X, you're maybe a little bit too far pushed up, so you're going to stall out this point. Just get the 99, put yourself in one-fight territory. Getting rid of the Terror Surge is huge, honestly, for Factor X here, but now if you're Zokorp, you're in one-fight territory.
Yeah, and those deaths are really late, but the bright side is Ducio is going to spawn with them, and Pig Boy, if they get the touch, I think Factor X has a really good opportunity to follow up with double support ultimates, a Deadeye, and this is why you see Zokorp playing aggressively. Oh yeah, easy touch for Pig Boy, by the way. Way behind, no one even knows it. Overtime is going to kick in. We never know at the end of the day, but this fight could be the thing that decides this entire series as you're going with the Deadeye Wet 2, though, gets stunned out of it! And now a beat has to be activated. Ducio going to throw it directly back as there's no more else on the table. Stone, the closest person possible to having anything to pull this fight 90% away as Tizzy. Bit of a rough scenario, eventually going to be pressured into 97% to that. Still, Kiwi, though, has gone down early, and it's the Blade to try to pull off the heroics. Cleanse away, Burt there to destroy it all as Pig Boy and Squad shutting it down. The Concerning Rush doesn't even come out, and with Connie taken care of, Factor X has found their revenge against Zokorp Esports.
And just a great series by Factor X. I mean, again, these are both these teams' first game of the season. They will probably be playing again either tomorrow or some other day later this week. But for Factor X, you're looking at this as a, hey, like you said, it's a little bit of revenge, but these are two different teams. Yeah, the cores from both teams last season are still there, but this is probably a big win for them overall. Just get a little bit of revenge for that grand finals last season. And hey, a very, very good showing from them. I mean, this is a dominant series all the way around. Zokorp did get better as the series went on, but Factor X, they started off hot and really never got cool throughout this entire series. Yeah, Tizzy was a little slow throughout that entire last map, building up on that Orisa, but once they got built up, you saw Tizzy really start to take control of that map there. Same thing with Burt. They're doing a really good job denying Stone a lot of value with the Blade. I believe we saw 4 blades come out there from Stone. Only one time were they able actually to find any picks with it. The other 3 times, well, it was Burt sending them to the spawn room.
Yeah, that is unfortunately what happened in that scenario. And it's rough, and that is just the world that we live in the Dragon Blades of 2025. It's rare to really have that opening go your way. And it's an unfortunate situation, but of course, it is a long season ahead. At the end of the day, they're a team that managed to get into the top 4 last time. There's nothing to say with how they have performed and what we've seen from a lot of these players that they can't do the same exact thing once again. And like you said, get that match later on when it comes to the playoffs. But of course, in this scenario, it is a round robin during the regular season. So if these teams are going to see each other again, it is going to have to wait until the playoffs period.
Yeah, I mean, right now there's been a couple games that have already happened this week. It looks like, actually no, it looks like there's a couple teams that have technically played 2 games. It looks like there was an 8th team that ended up dropping out, so everyone has been awarded a win for that. So there's still another game probably to go for a lot of these teams this week. But right now, Factor X starting off really good here, and I mean, leaders, we really do still expect them to be probably one of the better teams in this tier again this season. But outside of that, Goodfellas, who I believe, Hunter, you mentioned, that was kind of the core of elements from last year, starting off with a win. Puma starting off with a win. Farka, Zenith, Garfo, the other teams here, not necessarily the best start for either of those teams just yet, looking for their first wins here. Actually, it looks like Faceit has not played their first game of the season yet either, so there's still a lot of moving parts. But like you said, round robin, every team will get to play each other here. That is why you only normally see one South American game a week from us, because unlike NA and EMEA, there's only 8 teams here, so they will take up that entire 7-week period to play all the games one at a time here.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen in this scenario right here. Now, like some of the other regions like EMEA, North America, that play twice, it's very much like the Oceania region, which does play just once a week. But, I mean, sometimes the bright side, these teams don't always want to play on that Wednesday. I mean, we saw last week every single team
Every
reschedule
team.
to a different date or time, which is why we're here on Tuesday right now, casting South America. But so long as, knock on wood, nothing changes for tomorrow, we're covering another South America game, Goodfellas versus Pumas. Which Goodfellas, a lot of that previous Elements team coming into that one right there. And Pumas, I believe a lot of their squads stick around as well, as they barely managed to stay within that top 6 to go back into the season of South America Masters. So I'm excited to see both those squads, honestly, because Puma, despite not making the playoffs, honestly had some really good moments throughout the season.
Yeah, and both Goodfellas and Pumas won week 1. So technically they're coming into this second game 2-0. So that's a really good matchup with two of the best teams here in the region that we really do expect to have those two teams to really be probably in the top half of this region throughout the entire season. I mean, we had a great one here with the rematch of last season's grand finals, and now Goodfellas and Pumas happening week 2. A lot of good games here early on in South America.
No, that's exactly what we hope for in this situation right here. But with that being the case, obviously, we would love to keep talking about South America, get everything taken care of. And the bright side is, hopefully, again, knocking on that wood, hopefully we get the chance to talk about it a little more tomorrow. But with that being the case, we're going to be signing off for tonight. Of course, make sure to come back around tomorrow because, even if South America does reschedule, we have a North America game happening then as well, which, if I remember correctly, it is going to be Shikigami Midori going up against Daystar, the reforming of Dreamland, which obviously big team made it all the way to the very end and unfortunately just didn't make any promotion relegation. So simply hoping to make it back. And of course, you're going to come by Friday night. Emo Town Mid Shikigami is going to be our Friday night game for North America. But in terms of South America, in terms of us here, myself, Dexatron, thank you all for joining us tonight. We hope to see you tomorrow for some more Faceit League action.